Assalamualaikum pada semua dan a very good morning to all. Uh, uh, Today we are having our apa nama lecture on Earthwork on IDP2. We are now in week number 2 and it's a combination between group 1 and group 4 if I'm not mistaken. Okay, for our lecture this morning, and I will be talking on earthwork for this morning. Okay, I believe you've gone through the first lecture last Sunday. Betul? You've gone through, I think, estimating punya lecture on last Sunday. Am I right? Betul Alright. Okay, so today will be your second lecture on IDP2 and we'll be discussing more on earthwork. Okay, so I had a look at the name list and I think section 4 has the most number of students in all the sections from 1 to 8. You have about 60 students in section 4, and I think about 40 plus, about 45 students in section 1. So a total of 105 students, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. So because of that, I'm using Webex because I would prefer to use Zoom, but instead the number of students will not allow me to use Zoom. So that's why I fall back on Webex. Okay. We have already about how many? We have about 52 participants right now. Okay, 52 participants and counting. Okay, so today we are going to look at the new topic which is called earthwork. Right, for earthwork design, I think previously you had some experience looking into earthwork in your survey camp. Okay, I'm not sure how detailed the earthwork was done, but basically I understand from Dr. Mushairi dan juga Dr. Azril dan juga Dr. Razwan, okay, one of the projects given during your survey camp, maybe a virtual survey camp, not sure, was doing the earthwork calculation of cut and fill, right? So we'll be doing a lot of that later on, okay, later on in our uh, in our lecture. But for today, what I intend to share is the basic understanding, okay, the basic understanding of earthwork, which is to look at the proposed levels. Okay, so basically in earthwork design, the first the first process that is involved in earthwork design is to propose a certain level, and from that certain level, then we can proceed to evaluate the volumetric um, cut and fill volume of earthwork. So a very important and integral part of earthwork is uh, stage where you start proposing a certain levels to the overall site. I hope everyone has already downloaded the site plan that has been uploaded into e-learning, so you can download the drawing. Drawing is in AutoCAD, so you can use that drawing for your overall IDP 1 and also IDP 2. You'll be using the same site plan for both IDP 1 dan juga IDP 2. Right. Coming back to proposed levels, okay. So before we even start doing, ataupun even before we even start using our calculator, it is important that we come into a stage where we term the stage as site planning, right? So site planning is basically we are looking at the site and trying to make sense of the site, okay? to understand what is the site all about before the development starts. Okay, so we're looking at the site plan before the proposed development, and from that basic contour plan, then we are then proposing certain levels. Okay, then we start proposing certain levels to the overall site. So this lecture for this morning is a lecture on how we can start uh, selecting suitable proposed levels before we even start the calculation of cut and fill. So basically, I'm stressing the point that before we even start calculation of the cut and fill, it is very important, it is very vital that we come up with a proposal of the proposed level for the overall site. And there is a certain technique ataupun cara on how we can come about proposing relatively suitable proposed levels as the first try percubaan pertama. Remember, I mentioned earlier during the briefing that the earthwork and the costing department will have to work very closely together, in a sense that the earthwork department will come up with a proposal of the proposed level, of the levels for the overall site. Then these proposed levels would then be submitted kepada ataupun will be passed over to the costing punya department, and the costing department will come up with a certain evaluation of the earthwork cut and fill, and from there they will arrive at certain costs. So based on the proposed levels in the initial stage of your IDP earthwork module, then the costing department will come up with a will come out with the respective ataupun will come out with the costing for the first proposal. Then the earthwork department will proceed kepada the second trial ataupun percubaan yang kedua, where the intention is to reduce the cost, and to reduce the cost would refer ataupun would need the earthwork department to re-look at certain levels. Maybe certain levels are too high, which will cause a lot of filling, ataupun certain levels are too low, which will cause a lot of cutting, and therefore you have a lot of cost involved there in cutting and filling. So you might choose to modify certain levels, not the whole site, tak perlu modify the whole site, but just modify certain levels so that you can achieve a better overall volume, and this would cause the cost of the earthwork to come down. So basically, we are looking at a first trial of the proposed level, and subsequently, after the costing department has come up with the relatively the relative costs related to earthwork, then the earthwork department will come again, will try out a new level. Certain parts of the site might be modified, certain levels within the site might be modified, with the aim of trying to reduce the total amount of cut and fill, so that there will be a reduction in the costing. And the second trial, percubaan yang kedua, will then be the final level that will be adopted for the whole group, so that the Department of Water Supply, the Department of Erosion will be able to follow through using the second trial levels as the final levels. And that final level, after the second trial, okay, after the reduction in costing, will then form your basic ataupun will form the basis of the levels that will be used in IDP2 in your road, drainage and sewerage design later on in IDP2. So please take note that all the work that you are doing right now in IDP 1 will be referred to when you work up your way up to IDP 2. So when you reach IDP 2, you will need to refer to the levels that you have proposed in IDP 1, and the levels are the levels in the second trial, percubaan yang kedua. Not the first trial, but the second trial, right? So, what I'm trying to share today is the topic of site planning. Now, site planning involves apa nama trying to get reasonable levels for the whole site, and this can be achieved, okay, by by techniques which is called the site analysis, site inventory, and site analysis technique. So what we see here is that in this module, students working in groups. Okay, working in groups for the time being. Okay, for the time being, I'm still haven't finished the grouping for all sections. Okay, inshallah, I will be coming up with the list of groupings maybe later this week, maybe on Thursday, maybe by tomorrow, or if not by Friday. So by the end of this week, ataupun within towards the end of this week, I will be sharing the groupings for all the sections 1 to 7 in SEAA dan juga section 1 in SKAB for IDP 1. So altogether, I have worked about sampai ke group sampai section 4. So I still have another 4 sections to go. So I'm working on that. Hopefully, inshallah, by this week, towards the end of this week, I'll be able to share, and I will upload the grouping list in the WhatsApp group dan juga in the e-learning for your reference later on, right? Right. So some groups, especially for example, section 4 with 60 students, then it makes me easier because with 60 students, I can divide each group to have about approximately 10 students. So in section 4, there will be 6 groups with 10 students each for each group, right? So that will be in section 4. For section 1, I think we'll have allocated about 5 groups because the number of students is approximately 45. So 5 equal groups with 9 students per group. So section 1 will be having approximately 9 students per group with 5 groups. Okay? Whereas in section 4, there'll be about approximately 6 groups with 10 students each, okay, for the grouping. So that is roughly the distribution of the groups for section 1 and section 4. I'll be sharing that later within towards the end of this week, right? So in site planning, development site plan, among others, will be each group will be given a development site plan. This is what has been given to you in e-learning. And remember, the drawing is in AutoCAD, okay? And you can, you can with AutoCAD you can block out certain layers, and from the drawing you can have 2 separate drawings. One drawing to indicate just the development of the whole site, and another drawing indicating just the contour lines and all the existing features in the site, okay, before development. So you can separate from the single drawing that I've given in learning. You can actually separate into 2 drawings, indicating one drawing is indicating the actual site before development, the contour lines and all the important features, okay, within the site and around the site. And the second drawing is where you can have just the development drawing alone. So you can have 2 different drawings extracted from the single drawing. Okay, we'll come to that later on. Okay, the development plan given, among others, shall indicate the location of the proposed site, the proposed development components, the existing contours, and spot height levels. Okay, these are important notes that important features that you need to take note. These are the contour lines and the height, spot heights of the existing site, together with important existing features within the vicinity of the proposed site, such as existing road, okay, existing drain and invert levels, existing drainage reserves, dan juga existing streams, rivers or waterways which may be indicated in the site. So these are important features indicating existing components of the site before development. One, you will have the contours and the spot heights. Number two, there might be an indication of existing development around the site. When you have existing development, then there are existing levels. For example, there will be existing road levels around the site. Okay. Another thing is that the drawings might show some existing drain, okay, within and around the site. So these are all important features that will be given to each group, and from there, okay, from there you will kita will work out the proposed level menggunakan what is termed as the site inventory dan juga site analysis. Right. Moving on, this is an example of a proposed development. Okay. It indicates the proposed site, the location, and this where the site is situated, the overall shape of the site, and of course the details of the development, such as is it the housing, the shop lots. Okay, the blue color is indicating some business buildings ataupun business centers on one side of the residential area, and the rest is basically residential houses located within the site. And interestingly, it also indicates existing, okay, existing existing mana dia? Okay. Existing development around the site. Clearly, there is a road network, okay, around the site. There is a existing drainage system around the site. Existing taman-taman, Horizon Hill somewhere here, okay, and also sungai. There is an existing river, Sungai Melayu, indicated on the right hand side of the site. So these are all features that can be captured in the drawings, okay, in the site plan given, right? And from here, next page, boleh pula. Okay. Okay. This is the some brief of the project. Okay, the project concept, indicating what is the project all about. Okay, is to develop a residential and commercial area. So it is a combination between residential and commercial, and all the sum of the summary of the project development is listed out. Okay, it's just an example. I'm showing just an example. And we have the project component, we have the housing bungalow lots. There are about 14 units. We have single story bungalows, about 200 plus units, and so on. Okay. For the commercial, we have the office shop lots, and the height is not given here. Okay. A food court, okay. Double story means 2 stories. Okay. Office shop lot. Public amenities, we have surau, halls, and kindergarten, open areas, and infrastructures. We have the road reserves, drain reserves, detention pond location, and substation main divider. Okay, this is for the supply of the electricity towards the whole site. Okay. Project description, some brief description of each component. For example, the residential area. Okay. What is the acreage for the residential area? The total acreage, categories, 4 categories: bungalow, single story bungalow, double story semi-D, and double story terrace housing. Public amenities, open areas, commercial areas also, made up of office, shop, food court, petrol station dan juga commercial lot. Okay, so these are some basic information, okay, information that can be used, that can be utilized later on. For example, in the water supply, okay, for the water supply process, you need to know how many units of houses are located in the site, how many units of shop houses and so on, because you're going to evaluate the total water demand later on. So if there is an exact number of houses, then you can evaluate what would be the total demand. Okay? Later on, Dr. Zainab will guide you on how to evaluate the total demand, which is the requirement for of water for the whole site for at least a single day. So from that you can work out how many 100,000 gallons of water is required per day for the consumption of the whole development area. And from there you can work out the the size of water tanks and so on, right? So the site planning process, okay, now we are coming to back to the site planning process, involves basically these two basic processes, where for this lecture this morning, I will be concentrating on these two only. For the for you to come up with the proposed levels. At stage 4 is when you do the actual evaluation of the volume of cut and fill. That will come later. Okay, so you need to concentrate maybe the first 3 to 4 weeks to come up with the proposed levels. And the way to achieve these proposed levels is by going through stage 1 and stage 2, where stage 1 would refer to the site inventory and stage 2 would refer to the site analysis. And from these two stages, we can then come to a stage where some proposed levels can be included into the site. So at stage 3 is where you are able to propose some relatively workable and justifiable levels for the overall site. Okay, remember in IDP we are always looking for responses where the response is basically based on basic engineering guide ataupun basic engineering assumptions. Okay, so we'll be looking more pada stage 1 and stage 2 for this morning, and later on for the evaluation of cut and fill and so on, I will concentrate that into another lecture later on, maybe in week number 5, specifically for those who are doing the earthwork sahaja. Even though if you are doing something else, you can still join in. But I will focus the second stage of my lecture will be on the evaluation ataupun the actual process of cut and fill, and how to evaluate the amount of the volume of cut and the volume of fill based on the proposed levels that you are going to come up with within the first 3 to 4 weeks. So the first 3 to 4 weeks is for you to study and to come up with a proposed level. To study meaning that later on you will see that you need to study the site. Okay, and from there we will come to a conclusion of a proposed level by going to these two stages, right? So a lot of this lecture today, this morning, is based on stage 1 and stage 2 that you will need to come to understand and to visualize, so that you can come to a stage where some ataupun overall proposed levels can then be proposed, okay, for the overall site. And that is where the earthwork is the most important criteria. That is the proposed levels. The cut and fill is the secondary punya process. Okay, it follows the proposed level. So the most important stage is to come up with a proposed level, and that proposed level has to be based on certain assumptions, on certain observations dan sebagainya, which will be highlighted in stage 1 and stage 2, right? So moving on daripada sini, Okay, I need to close on the annotate. Okay, and moving on, we come to the site inventory punya talk dulu. Okay, so what is site inventory? Okay, site inventory is the first of the two site planning processes. We have two site planning processes, which is the site inventory dan juga the site analysis. Okay, whereas from which students are required to undertake a detailed study and observation of the pre-com plan. Okay, the pre-com plan meaning the site plan before development. Okay, the site plan before pre-commercialization of the site. So it's a pre-com plan where we look at the site before any development is to take place. Okay, this is called the pre-com plan. And subsequently, from the observation, to produce an inventory list. Okay, what is the inventory list? I'm sure some of you have come across the word inventory. Okay, the word inventory ini sebenarnya referring kepada checklist lah, checklist of what is available, what is present, apa yang ada. So the inventory list is actually a list of all the features that is currently on site before development. Okay, so the list would eventually lead to site analysis, where students are able to make informed and good engineering judgment. Okay, so the site inventory list, if we have a look at the site inventory list, apa yang dimaksudkan ialah what it means is that shall include but not limited. It can be more than what is written here. The first thing is basically to look at the site profile, the terrain of the profile, the terrain of the site. How is the original terrain? Is it undulating? Okay, ataupun a relatively flat terrain? Okay, or an undulating terrain with several peaks and several valleys, ataupun a relative flat terrain, or a combination both with abrupt changes in levels. So these are the first criteria that we can, this is the first criteria that we can observe from the site plan, from the given site plan, to look at the contour plan of the overall site and try to understand the terrain of the site, okay, the natural terrain of the site before any development is to be carried out, which means we are looking at the site as it is, okay, as it is, the original ground level before any development is carried out. So this is the first observation that we can make, okay, based on the site plan given. Okay, kemudian yang kedua is we can locate the highest peak. Okay, where is the highest peak within the site, the lowest levels, etc., etc. Okay, di mana kedudukan the highest peak and where is the lowest levels, adjacent land use. Okay, we can have a look at whether there is any adjacent land use, meaning are there any adjacent development. Okay, are there any development adjacent ataupun just beside the site that we are looking at. So we are looking at adjacent land use such as virgin land ataupun is totally no development, tu yang kita namakan sebagai virgin land. Okay, jadi the site, the proposed site is located in a totally new development whereby there is no existing development around the site. Itu pun satu juga possibility. Okay, with no existing development, or there is existence of development adjacent to the proposed site. Okay, locations and invert levels of existing drain. This is another observation that we can make. Locations and invert levels of existing drain or major waterways, layout and levels of existing road and drainage network around the site, within the site and around the site, existence of natural ponds and streams or wetlands in and around the vicinity. So this is the example of a site inventory. You are making up a list. Okay, so from the site plan given, okay, then you can say, okay, one part you can highlight, saya katakan, the terrain dia macam mana. Is it a flat terrain? Is it an undulating terrain? A combination of both flat and undulating terrain. Okay, that is the first observation. Yang kedua, we're looking at location of highest and peak and lowest level that can also be ascertained during ataupun when we're looking at the terrain. Kemudian land use. Are there any existing land use adjacent to the proposed development? Kemudian looking at adjacent, maybe there are existing road ataupun existing drainages around the site. So these are all the list. These are the components of what is termed sebagai inventory process, the site inventory process. So you're making up a list of all existing features within the site and around the site, and noting dia punya important features lah. For example, there is an existing road around site. So what is the level of the road? Okay, so we take note of the road levels around the existing site. And then there is a drainage around the existing site. So take note of the invert level of the drainage. So these are the components of site inventory that that you need to pick up by looking and by studying the site plan. That is why I mentioned earlier, maybe this first 3 to 4 weeks is a time for you to study the site plan and to come up with an inventory list, the site inventory list. Okay? And for that, the site inventory list. Okay, so this is the site inventory process. Existing terrain, adjacent land use. This is an example. It can be more than this. It can be more than this. Existing roads, existing drainage, water bodies. These are all the components of site inventory, and we pick up daripada our site inventory process. We make a list of all the features within and around the existing site. Okay? Looking into this typical guide di sini. The existing terrain, this will be a very important feature of the existing site. Land use, adjacent land use. If there is any adjacent land use, then we could expect to find certain levels of the adjacent land use. Okay? For example, there is an existing shop house ataupun a row of shop houses just beside our proposed site, and of course that for that shop houses there will be a certain levels for that, so that would come in handy when we are trying to propose the levels for our site, right? So moving on from here, this is what I meant earlier. From the same site, try to have two different drawings. One is a drawing indicating the proposed development, and another set of drawing is the drawing indicating the survey plan, okay, indicating the existing features, the terrain, the topography of the site, okay, and all the existing levels and invert levels within and around the site. So work on these two drawings dulu. You have your the drawings that are given in e-learning. The drawings in e-learning is a combined drawing. Both these drawings merge into a single site plan. So the first stage in our earthwork process is to try to separate these two drawings. Look at the layers, okay? So cover ataupun block certain layers, then you will have this drawing. Okay, so you can work out on these two drawings initially to separate these two the single drawing into two components. One component is indicating the development, the focusing on the proposed development, and another drawing of the same site, okay, indicating the existing features of the site which includes the topography of the site, which includes all the information that can be gathered from the drawing, indicating the existing site with reference to the existing site. So this would be your first apa nama your first assignment lah, boleh dikatakan, your first attempt in earthwork before we even start our calculation of earthwork. The first thing is to try to separate the single drawing, that I've given into two separate drawings, one indicating the proposed development, and the same drawing, the same site, looking at the topography map and all the existing features in and around the site. Okay, so this would be your first challenge. The challenge yang pertama is to produce these two drawings from the single drawing that you have downloaded from e-learning. Okay, once we have these two drawings separated, then now kita come into the observation punya stage. Now we come to the observation where we are studying the site plan. Okay, and this is one indication, one example, the terrain observations, okay, from the given site plan where we have separated the topography map from the development map, development plan, and from here we can easily look at the topography map, and from here we can pick up a lot of information. Contohnya, on the terrain observations, we can look at there are certain peaks, there are certain hill, ada berbukit-bukit within the same site. There are several peaks. We have peak number 1, which is approximately about 20 meters plus. Okay, peak number 2, the highest peak, which is about 40 plus meters. Peak number 3, which is approximately about 23 plus meters. Peak number 4, and finally peak number 5. So there are 5 different puncak ataupun peak within the site itself. So we can imagine that the site is very, very undulating. Okay, we have peaks, and at the same time we have low levels. Okay, low levels of 6.5, low level number 1, low zone where the existing level is very low, approximately 1.5 meters. Okay, another zone which has a low level of approximately 2.0 meter. And one interesting observation is that, contohlah in this example, is that there is a zone where there is a deep ravine. Ravine ni macam lurah lah, lurah. So in between these two peaks, antara these two peaks, there is a very deep ravine. Okay. So these are all observation based on terrain, berdasarkan kepada topography of the site. So between these two peaks, between peak number 4 dengan peak number 5, ada a very deep ravine, and it is almost vertical. Almost vertical ni, almost vertical can be concluded because the contour lines are very close to each other. Okay, when we have, for example, a contour line. Okay, sharing. Mana? Acrobat, movies, Google Chrome. Sekejap, Okay. Okay, basically, if we look at a typical topography map, okay, if we have, let's say, ada satu puncak sini, okay, we're looking at a hill, okay, on one side, dia punya on one side dia punya contour line tu quite far apart. On the other side, it is quite close. Yeah. For example lah, for example. Okay, if we have a look at here, Then on this side ni, okay, on this side, from observation kita tengok sini, on this side, the topography lines ataupun the contour lines are spaced quite far apart, meaning that if we were to have a look at, if we were to imagine dia punya slope, we would have sort of a gradual slope macam tu. Between the peak, katakan you peak, okay, katakan 30 and a low of katakan 10. 30, 20, 10, 30, 28, 26, 5 meter sila lah. 30, 25, 20, 15. Ni around 15 lah. Around 15. Around 15. This is 15 meters. So from here we can imagine this is a cross section view. We have a peak of about 30 kepada 15 secara gradual. Gradually it is a slope, it is a gentle slope. Whereas on the opposite side, sebelah ni, okay, on this opposite side, okay, we can imagine because the contour lines are closely spaced together, maka it indicates that it is quite a steep punya slope on the left hand side. On the right hand side is a gentle slope, whereas on the left hand side indicates a sharp and steep punya slope. This can be observed by looking at the contour lines. If the contour lines are closely spaced between each line, then it indicates a very steep punya condition. Whereas if on the right hand side, the lines are spaced out, okay, relatively far apart, then we can make a conclusion that this is referring kepada a gentle slope, whereas on the opposite end of the hill, of the peak, we are looking at a steep slope. Okay, a steep slope versus a gradual slope. So we can make sense of this by looking at the contour map. Okay, by looking at the contour lines, studying the contour lines, then we can come to a conclusion. One side of the peak is a steep condition, whereas on the other side, on the right hand side, it is a gentle slope. Okay, so this is what I mean by looking at apa nama kita punya discussion tadi. Okay, sharing again, back to where we were discussing. Okay, back kepada sini. So this is what we can term sebagai a deep ravine because the contour line sebelah sini, okay, I can besarkan ni, maybe boleh nampak sikit lah okay, a very closely spaced punya contour lines, okay, from peak number 4 dan juga peak number 5. So we would be we can imagine that it is almost a vertical punya slope, okay, on both sides of the okay, of the hill, right? View back kepada feed to window, right? Okay. So moving on, okay, this is observation based on terrain. This is our terrain observation. Okay, moving on, we can kita juga ada observation of existing roads around the site and the existing road level. So we can make some sense from this drawing is that we have a road level here. We have a road around the site, a road level of 6.3 at one end, and it indicates that as we move along the road on one side of the site, it increases from 6.3 kepada 8.5. And this 8.5 is then increasing again up to about 15.9. And then from 15.9, it slopes down. And then from here to here, it is almost level, 6.3 and 6.3. So we are now getting a bit, much more information, not just the existence of roads around the site, but now we are talking in terms of the levels. And clearly from the road levels, this lower part is the this north part is the lowest level, whereas as we move from the north kepada south of the site, it increases, the road level increases, and naturally it dia fall back balik, slopes down balik kepada about 6.3. So we have about 6.3, the lowest level, to the highest level of approximately 15.9. Okay, so this gives an indication of the existing road level around the site. So naturally, if the site is to follow the road level, then we would be safe to say that this would be on a higher level compared kepada sebelah sini. This part would be a lower level of the site, where we can propose a lower level of the site, and we can propose a higher level on the southern part of the site, because the existing road gives an indication that it is at the highest level, around 15.9, around 16 meters at this age. So we can be expected to give a sort of slope to the side, overall slope. We're looking at the overall slope, that it would be a very high level around here, and then it would be sloping down kepada a lower level at the northern part of the site. So we're now getting some figures. Tadi we were looking at the terrain. We're looking at the highest level, the lowest level. Okay, we're looking at that, and we're looking at the overall undulating terrain of the site. Now we are looking at levels, existing levels around the site, and this gives an indication that the site will probably follow the road level. Kalaulah paling-paling simple pun, we say, okay, the site shall follow the road level, then this level to be the highest level, followed by lowest level indicated around the northern part of the site. Yeah, just an indication sajalah. Okay, we haven't come up with the exact figure lagi, belum lagi. Tapi an indication is that we will probably have a higher level on the southern part of the site as compared to a lower level on the northern part of the site. So now we are getting somewhere. We are getting some figures. Okay? We haven't started anything yet, tapi we are now getting some feedback from the drawings, and these feedbacks are giving an indication that the site will probably be a bit higher on the southern part as compared to the northern part. Okay, now this is observation based on road levels existing. Okay, the third observation, we might be looking at what would be the natural drainage around the site and within the site. Okay, so within the site, from the study of the contour map, from the pre-com plan given, clearly we can indicate ataupun we can observe that there is several drains ataupun natural waterways within the site. Okay, on this left hand side, sebelah atas, on the top left hand side of the site, we have what is indicated here, a water flow from outside of the site, right? Not within the site, daripada luar tapak, encroaching into the site, okay, and then ponded sekejap di sini before a final discharge di sebelah sana, on the top left hand side of the site. So this is the first observation, the first natural surface water discharge outlet together dengan dia punya streams dan juga ponds within the site. Okay, this is one first observation. The second observation is that there is a small stream within the site on the right hand side. Okay, sebelah kanan side ni, flowing from indicated here, okay, by this arrow, flowing kemudian discharging on the right hand side. So tadi discharging on the top left hand side, now another discharge is on the right hand side. And finally ada satu lagi discharge, again coming indicated di sini. There is a flow of okay, surface water from outside of the site encroaching, okay, cutting across the site sehingga discharging on the right hand side. It's coming in from the lower left hand side of the site, and then cutting across the site dan discharging on the right hand side. Okay, so this is inventory. Ini dimasukkan inventory. Okay, we've started off dengan terrain in the observation. Kemudian we move on kepada existing road levels observation number 2. Observation number 3, we are looking at natural major surface water discharge outlets indicated in the drawing, extracted from the drawings, yeah, by the process of site inventory. And this is what is termed sebagai site inventory. We're picking up all important features, all important and relevant information from the site, within the site, dan juga around the site. Okay, around the given site. And selepas pada ni, there is satu lagi, existing drain, roadside drain dan juga culverts. Again, this is information obtained from site inventory. Before development, there are several culverts already in existence. Culvert number 1, culvert number 2, culvert number 3, and culvert number 4. So these are all information that we have gathered from the process of site inventory. So slowly but surely we are getting the whole picture of the site, the existing site. Before development, we have the terrain observations, we have the road levels observation, existing road levels observation, we have the water drainage outlet observations, and we have the culverts and existing roadside drain observations. So these are the site inventory. Ini yang dimaksudkan sebagai site inventory. We are studying the site plan in its original form, dalam bentuk asal, before development, what we call as a pre-com punya observation, pre-com study. So what we're doing is to study the site before development and to pick up all the important information dan juga features, okay, within and around the site before development, sebelum pembangunan. So we are gathering all the information, and this process of gathering all the relevant information from the existing site, okay, within and around the site, this is what we term sebagai our site inventory. Ini yang dinamakan sebagai site inventory. Okay. So slowly but surely we're making up a general picture of the site before development, sebelum pembangunan lagi. Okay, before development, we're trying to understand how is the site, how does it look like, how is it functioning, what are the main features of the site dan sebagainya before development. Okay, so this is the process that I want each group nanti, okay, later on, within these 3 to 4 weeks, to come up with this sort of observation dalam site inventory. What can you observe from the given site? What are the important features that you can pick up from the site, from the existing site? What are the constraints from the existing site? Okay, before development lagi. So we are looking into this process, which is termed sebagai our site inventory process. Okay. Once we have listed all this, then kita move on kepada what is termed sebagai our site analysis. Now we come up with we have all the information. Now we are trying to digest this information and come up with some proposals. And ini dinamakan sebagai site analysis. Okay. So the second process involves site analysis process, where all information gathered from the site inventory process is then digested. Kita nak menghadamkan, okay, nak menghadamkan all the relevant information that we have gathered from the site analysis process. Now kita nak cuba trying to make sense of all the information. Ini yang proses yang dinamakan is what we term sebagai the analysis process. Tadi the inventory process. Now we're coming to the analysis process. We're trying to make sense. The information that we have gathered, how can we make use of that information? Okay, how can we benefit from that information? Or from the information that we have gathered, what would be the adverse ataupun adverse effect, kesan-kesan keburukan that we might encounter in the process of the development. Jadi bukan, it's not only the beneficial punya aspect, tapi we are looking at adverse ni bermaksud kesan merosakkan, kesan kerosakan, kesan yang merosakkan. Okay? Jadi kalau beneficial, kesan yang memberi kebaikan. Kalau adverse, kesan yang memberi kerosakan pada memusnahkan ataupun kerosakan pada pembangunan. So by observing the site inventory, we can come to a conclusion, nanti kita tengok, that some of the notes ataupun the inventory that we have picked up sebenarnya adalah beneficial punya information, but at the same time certain information would be adverse information yang boleh digunakan untuk mengelakkan kerosakan berlaku. So there's always two sides of a coin lah, kata kan. Okay? Ada yang baik, ada yang buruk. So whatever it is, we take note, take note in the site inventory process, take all the important features dalam site, and then kita analyze kemudian. So for example, by knowing the location of contohnya existing lowest level, then the location of the STP can be logically cited. Okay, contohnya, we have tadi determine where is the lowest level, yang mana highest level. The highest level bermaksud that would be the possible location of water tank. Okay, lowest level, a possible location of the sewerage treatment plant. So now we're coming into the analysis process. Tadi kita cuma gather the information. Now we are trying to use that information and to use that information to support kita punya infrastructure. Okay. So all these decisions will in turn lead students to gradually form what is termed sebagai kita punya grading plan ataupun level. Secara conceptual grading levels ataupun conceptual grading plan ataupun conceptual levels punya plan, aras-arasnya dicadangkan in the conceptual, secara konsep. So this will form your percubaan pertama. Okay, this will form your first trial where you come up with a conceptual grading plan, and from there you work out the cut and fill later on, and from there the costing will come up with the relevant cost based on conceptual grading plan, conceptual levels. And then baru you start your second trial by trying to reduce the amount of cut and fill by modifying certain levels. Tak payah tengok semua. Certain portion of the site. Okay, concentrate pada 1-2 portion of the site. Try to modify the level. Sama ada reducing the level ataupun increasing the level. Okay, so that you have lesser amount of cut and fill, and this would this would be reflected dalam cost where you have a lower cost, right? Okay, any questions so far? This is kita punya site analysis. Tadi kita punya site inventory. From the inventory punya information, then we can say, okay, now we can possibly locate the water tank on this peak, which is the highest peak, 40 meters plus tadi. Okay, when we say we want to put our possible water tank location di sini, bermakna the existing level of 41 plus tu can be maintained. Okay, bermakna there is no cut and fill at the peak of the hill, ataupun might be slightly kita sikit from 41, katakan proposed level at this position to be around 39 contoh. So there's not much cutting lah, tak banyak yang dipotong. We still maintain the highest level at 39 contohnya. And these tiga other locations, are locations that can be used to locate, contohnya, a possible STP location dan juga detention pond location. Now, detention pond ni, you haven't started on drainage yet. Sebenarnya detention pond ni is required in drainage design. Tapi just imagine we are in our campus. I know it's more than dah lebih 2 tahun tak balik campus, okay? But, but you can imagine UTM punya campus Kudai tu. As you approach the main gate tu kan, ada tasik-tasik kan. Okay? On the right hand side there is a nice lake dan sebagainya. Okay? That lake sebenarnya is actually a lake that is required for drainage punya approval. Sebenarnya that lake is more of a technical lake. Okay? Tasik yang tujuan to support our drainage system for the campus rather than a recreational punya lake. Tapi because of the lake, maka secondary component of recreation punya activities can be carried out at the lake. But in essence, that lake was created based on the requirement for drainage. Jadi drainage ni sebelum drain tu release the water out of the site. Now, according to MASMA, Mesra Alam, okay, drainage according to MASMA design, each outlet ni sebelum the discharge keluar, it must be stored in a storage facility. And this is the naturally the storage facility is a lake. Okay, so kita store air dalam lake before releasing the water out of the site. So dalam UTM tu, the lake functions sebenarnya as a detention pond. So it stores water di situ. Bila hujan, when there is heavy rain, water will then be stored in the lake, okay, up to a certain level, and then baru dia release. So the release of water from the site is controlled by the level dalam lake tu lah. We have what is termed sebagai weir, W-E-I-R, weir. Okay, so at the end of the lake tu, kalau tengok perhati betul-betul, there is a weir, a sort of a macam dam with a certain height. If the water is below that the level of the weir, then the water is stored. When there is heavy rain, then water will start to rise up. Lebih lebat lagi, water will then start to overflow the weir. And when they overflow the weir, barulah keluar sebagai discharge. Okay? So this is one way to control flash flooding. Without the detention pond, all the drains will go out, will carry water simultaneously kepada the final discharge. And because we have a heavy rain, suddenly semua peparitan penuh, semua bawa air ke discharge, and there will be a flash flood pada discharge point tu, berlaku flash flooding. So we try to overcome this by providing a storage facility before discharge, and that storage facility is the detention lake ataupun detention pond. So the lake dalam UTM, all the lakes dalam UTM tu sebenarnya function as a detention pond for storage facilities in heavy rains, and then the water will start to rise up. More heavy rain, the water will start to overflow, and then dia akan pergi discharge. So we have a more control punya discharge rather than all the drains discharging at the same time pada single outlet. So we'll have a flash flood macam tu. Yeah? So this is what is meant by detention pond sebenarnya. Okay? The detention pond ni is actually requirement for drainage. Tapi we can say that this will be the 3 main locations for detention pond. Okay? So this is the site analysis. Okay? Beneficial features from the site inventory. Macam tadi, we have road levels. Okay? We have road levels, and if we overlap the development plan dengan the contour map, okay, the proposed new road into this development area is somewhere here, and it happens to be located somewhere di sini, and the level around here is around 15 existing level. Existing level. So this existing level is around 15 meters. So we would expect the entrance to the site ataupun the entrance to the development area would naturally be slightly higher ataupun sama. Now we are getting some figures. Okay. Now we can start proposing some levels. We can say, okay, so our group we like to propose 15.2 around here. Why? Why have you chosen 15.2? So because this new road will puncture the existing road somewhere here, and this existing level of the existing road is approximately 15.2. So we are taking the same level. Okay, good. So I will accept that as a good response, meaning that you've come up with a certain level and you can justify why you have selected 15.2 because it is puncturing existing road, and that location is the of the existing road has a level of around 15.2. So you are selecting similar levels so that the new road and the existing road meets at the same level. That makes sense, kan? So that is the sort of of response yang I've always mentioned briefing and again today. Okay? So anyway, now we are starting to have some levels for the site. Even though baru satu je lah. Tapi it's okay. Okay? We are starting to have certain levels. Okay? Initially, we have zero level. We had zero levels. Kita tak tahu pun how are we going to start proposing levels. But slowly I'm guiding you based on site inventory, looking at the topography of the site, looking at existing road levels around the site, and all the information gathered in the site inventory. Now we are taking our first step in proposing certain levels for the site, the proposed level. Okay, so now we are working very slowly, but surely we are moving forward. We have already started to start proposing certain levels. Daripada tak ada, sekarang dah mula ada. Even though it's just a small part of the site, but naturally this will gradually cover the whole site nantilah. And then another beneficial effect atau beneficial factor is that culverts, existing culverts. If we want to use this existing culvert for the discharge of water surface runoff from the site kepada all these existing culvert, then we must take note of the invert level, because this invert level will then control the level on the inside of the site, sebelah dalam apa nama tapak. Okay, so if you want to make use of this invert level at using culvert number 3, then the invert level is 0.5. Invert level ni is something mungkin just to highlight. Okay, invert level ni is mana dia? Pen. Saya tak pandai sangat way back ni. Okay. Oh, annotation. Mana dia? Pen. Ah, sini pen. Pen. Okay. Invert level ni is something like this is our drain. Katalah our drain macam ni. This is our drain. Okay. So invert level ni is referring kepada paling bawah sekali ni. This level. Invert level ni di paling bawah. The lowest level dalam drain tu. Ini yang kita namakan sebagai invert level. INVERT. Invert level. LEVEL. Okay. So if we want to make use of this invert level ataupun culvert to discharge water from the site kepada luar, because these are existing culverts, therefore we take note of the invert level of the culvert, meaning that katakan this is our site, okay, our site sini pakai warna apa, hijau, okay lah. Ini existing site, ini boundary, site boundary, kemudian we have our drainage di sini, existing drain sampai sini, culvert ke apa, we have this level, okay, this invert level. So if we want to make use of this invert level, therefore the level di dalam tapak ni will naturally be controlled so that now, on this part of the level it has to be diturunkan, it has to be reduced so that dia akan match dengan invert level di luar, so that water from the side can be released kepada to the apa nama ni lah, to the drain, mana water can now be released daripada sini, air boleh mengalir masuk ke dalam drainage. So the invert level of the drain will control the level on the inside of our site. This is another advantage. Now we are getting that we can safely say the level around here should not be more than 4. Must be should not be less than 4. Must be slightly higher than 4. Jadi air dapat mengalir kepada invert level 4.01. Area di sini must be higher than 0.5. Okay, 0.6, 0.7, so that water from the inside of from our side, from the side, can then be released kepada culverts yang di luar, which is slightly lower than the levels on the inside. And similarly, from this discussion, maka the levels around here would be around 0.7, katakan contoh. Okay. So again, tadi dekat di sini 15. Now we're talking about 4.1. Okay, 0.65, 0.75. So dah ada levels in terms of zoning there. Because we want to make use of the existing culvert di luar. So naturally, the level should not be lower than the drain level. It must be sama ataupun slightly higher. And the same thing over here, 2.7. So zoning di sebelah sini would be around 2.75, katakan. So then water can be released kepada the existing culvert at 2.7. Okay, so these are beneficial punya aspects. We are looking at site inventory. From that site inventory, it has given beneficial punya information, and we can make use of that information to start proposing levels secara konsep. Conceptually, we are putting in certain levels on the site secara overall, right?
Doctor, I'm sorry to bother you. I have a question.
Okay.
Yes, so you said that the level nearby the culvert should be slightly higher. Is it okay if it's so much higher? Like, for example, for 4-meter IL culvert, the
Okay.
second one, is it okay if the level is 7 meters, for example?
All right. There are cases where we have a drain from a higher level connected to a drain which is a lower level, where the difference between these two levels are quite significant. And for this purpose, what we provide is by providing a step drain. Not just a single drain, but a step drain where it steps down maybe around 200 to 300 for each step until it reaches the lower level of the drain. From a higher level to a lower level can be discharged using a step drain. Okay? A step, S-T-E-P-E-D. STEPPED, I think. Tak apalah. Step drain. So this is there is a specific name for that, but I can't remember. When I'm just using my own terminology, is that we can discharge from a higher level to a lower level by dissipating the energy within the flow by using what is termed as a stepping drain, where we step down a small amount at a time. Okay, we can use that as a solution, but again, it may be up to a certain limit, maybe around 1.5 to about 2 meters. Okay, 1.5 to 2 meters difference. More than that, maybe it might not be practical. It can be proposed, but I'm not too sure on the practicality side of the discharge of the drain. Okay, so try not to have too big a difference. If you say the cut invert level is around 4.0, maybe your proposed level around that side to be around maybe 2.5. Sorry, 6.5. Okay, you have a 2.5 difference between the invert level, the existing invert level on the outside of the site, and the proposed level is which is approximately 2.5 meters, slightly higher than the invert level. Okay, it is still possible, but not too big. Let's say 7 and 4 ataupun 8 and 4 meters. On one side you have 8 meters, on one side you have 4 meters. So you have a 4 meter, which is a which is more than a single story building kan, 4 meters high. So that will be on the extreme, a bit on the extreme. Okay.
Yes, Sus, thank you.
Okay, good. All right. So moving on, these are the beneficial information that we can make use of. Okay. Moving on, uh, to maintain existing outlet, to existing drains and culverts. This was what we were discussing earlier. We want to maintain the natural outlet that is already present in the original site. Then it means to say that the levels beside the discharge outlet would then be controlled by the invert levels of the drain on the outside of the site, beyond the site, right? Okay, so not just beneficial, there are some adverse features that can be picked up. Okay, apart from documenting the beneficial inventory list, potential problems can also be anticipated, and this is what we call the adverse features. One of the adverse features is that there is a deep ravine. Okay, so we will take note that there is a deep ravine here, will require significant backfilling. And not only that, we see from the development plan that there are roads very, very close to the site boundary, and also some buildings over here, okay, within this zone of deep ravine. So it would be a cause of concern in terms of backfilling. Therefore, when we have backfilling, naturally the normal pad foundation would not work. There will be uncontrolled settlement of the building later on. So we would say, in terms of the information that from the topography of the site, we can advise the engineers doing the design of the building that for the buildings located around here, you would need some piling work because of the deep ravine and a lot of backfill. Okay, so what I'm saying is that something like if we have okay, we have levels that are very okay, okay, we have a deep ravine here, and we are proposing, let's say we are proposing certain levels. This will be our proposed level. It means that, oh sorry, it means that all the soil below this will be a fill area. All this will be fill. Okay? All this will be fill. And naturally, if we were to have a building, kalau ada building, we have a building here, somewhere here. Okay? You have a house somewhere sini. Okay? Okay? Then the foundation for this, we can't work with the natural, natural pad foundation. We would need a deep foundation solution where there will be some piling works di sini. Okay, so naturally we would anticipate some piling works to be carried out for buildings that are located on fill area. Yeah, because remember we have a deep ravine, which means that we need to fill up the ravine to get a certain level, and this would be the effect would be on the foundation of certain buildings, and we can advise the structural designers later on that Mr. Engineer, you need to look at this foundation more closely because it is on a relatively thick fill area. So pile foundation would naturally work. The normal pad foundation would result in apa nama settlement, and this would cause problems later on. Okay, so this is one possible possible adverse that we anticipate very early. Okay, another possible other possible adverse effects would be retaining walls. Okay, now the retaining walls indicated here, these are retaining walls that we think may require retaining walls because the difference in level, existing level is 27.5, the road level is 15.5. So clearly there is a more than a 10-meter difference between the inside of the boundary and the outside of the boundary. This is our boundary. So the portion on the inside of the boundary is about 27.5. The road level is around 15.5. So we have about 12 meters of difference, which is relatively equivalent to about 4-story building. Okay, so the levels here, whatever levels that we propose over here, because of the huge difference in levels between the existing and the between these two existing levels, we might need to have some retaining walls provided over here. Okay, and this is indicated here because the levels are relatively too large, and we have all these roads located very close to the boundary. Okay, very close to the boundary. So we can't have what is termed as our natural slope. If possible, kalau possible lah, if possible, I would always like to have apa nama mana tadi share ni, okay, page number 2. Okay, if possible, I would always prefer to have a difference in slope where we have what is termed as our natural slope. Okay, this is the boundary. This is our boundary. Okay, this is our boundary here. Let's say this is our boundary, side boundary. This is the existing road somewhere here. Existing road is somewhere here. This is the existing road. This is our side. Okay, this is our side. Okay, this is our side. And I would prefer to have some sort of a natural slope given we have sufficient distance here. And this distance would depend on the slope of this. If we have one-to-one slope, and if this is the difference between this level is, let's say, we have around 15.5 tadi, 15.5, and let's say we are proposing something like 19.5. Let's say we have a 4-meter difference between these two levels. We have a 4-meter difference. We have reduced from a 12-meter difference to now something like a 4-meter. So this L would then be about 4 meters based on a slope of 1:1. If we have 4-meter clearance just beside the boundary, then I would prefer to have a natural slope. But however, sometimes, okay, the development, okay, the developer wants to build, let's say, a road somewhere here. There is a road to be located somewhere here. Then, of course, I can't have the slope. Then I would need sort of a retaining wall here. I would need a sort of a retaining wall located here. Okay, and this will be my road level because the road is too close to the boundary. There is no sufficient no sufficient distance to create a natural slope. Okay, so that is why I'm proposing. I've shown earlier that stop sharing. Sharing again. That is the reason why we see this proposal of possible retaining wall location because of the tremendous difference between these two levels. Okay? And similarly, we have an existing road level of around 6.3 and existing ground level of 18.5. Okay? So this is berapa banyak? 12 meters juga lah. About 12 meters. Yeah. About 12 meters difference between these two levels. So there is a possibility of retaining walls to be located at certain, especially at the boundary locations between existing levels and proposed levels. This will be possible retaining wall location. Okay. Satu lagi we can take note is the observation that this will be swampy land. Okay, swampy. We have waterlogged area here. Naturally, this has already been a swampy area because of the water flow within the site, okay? And across this location ni pun is a swampy area. So again, this would be information that we can share with the structural engineers, saying that these locations are quite unsuitable for normal pad foundation, and naturally you need to have specific foundation recommendations for this zoning. This would affect the foundation of buildings located within zones that we have identified earlier from our site inventory, and now we are doing the site analysis. We can safely say that these three particular zones, will be soft zone where it is waterlogged dan juga swampy, and suitable foundation has to be properly designed for buildings located all along this area. So for buildings located in the commercial zone and part of the residential zone will have special foundation, maybe a pile foundation, maybe a rough foundation, but not a natural pad foundation. It will not work because of the soil condition that would naturally affect the settlement of the building. We've come to about 10 o'clock. Okay, 10 in this one, and this is happens to be the last slide. Okay, the last slide. So what I've taken the time this morning is to show to you that for the first 3 to 4 weeks, or maybe the first 5 weeks, is for each group to concentrate and to study the site plan given, and to come up with a site inventory and also site analysis proposal. Okay, come up with a list of site inventory, and from that site inventory, what are the beneficial analysis and what are the adverse analysis that you can come up from these two, from the inventory list, and from there you can start proposing certain levels conceptually to cover the whole site, and that will be your first trial of your levels. Remember, this will be followed up by your second trial in our exercise to reduce the costing, which is a natural process. Even when you're working later on, every time you design something, it can be your structure, it can be your infrastructure, it can be your earthwork design. The client will always request you to look at some other aspect that could reduce the cost. So we're always doing the same thing in our classroom, dan juga nanti later on when you're working, you'll be doing the same thing juga. Okay. So any questions? So I hope this morning by exposing you to this process of site inventory and site analysis, you are now a bit more open in trying to come up with a suitable levels for the overall site based on your inventory dan juga site analysis. Any questions so far? We are not exactly at 10. You may have to ask us at 10, okay? So we'll be meeting again, okay, for the second part of the earthwork design, maybe in week number 3 or week number 4, where I will now explain in detail the process of the method used to evaluate the cut and fill, the slope stability analysis, okay, and also the okay lah, the slope stability dan juga the cut and fill and the cross sectional drawings, the plan views, how do we indicate the levels in a plan view, how do we indicate our proposed levels in a cross-sectional view. Those will all come into in our second lecture, maybe in week number 4 or week number 5 or week number 3. I'll let you know in the WhatsApp group. So if for those doing the earthwork, you need to attend. For those not doing the earthwork, maybe you're doing water supply, you can still join in, okay, later on nanti. So with that, I think you all apa? Any question?
Doctor,
Yes.
I have a question.
Okay. All right.
Do we given survey drawing CAD file?
Yes. In the drawings I have uploaded into the e-learning, it is an ACAD file, okay, AutoCAD. So the survey contours and the development drawing, they are all in a single drawing. So that's why I mentioned earlier, the first stage is to separate these two components. Okay, separate these two components. You cannot find it. It is in section 1 and 4 and section 7 and SKAB section 1, the sections that I'm teaching. Okay, so I've already uploaded that into e-learning. Okay, I'll check it again. If there is no drawings, then I will upload by today.
So that survey drawing is actual site lah. Is
Actual site, right? Is the actual site.
explained by the surveyor one.
Yes, yes.
All right, good.
Okay, so that is the actual survey drawing produced by surveyors. Okay, and it indicates the actual site plus the proposed development. So you need to separate these two into two separate drawings. So it'll be much easier for you to work on two separate drawings. Later on, you can recombine the drawings. You can just block out the layers. Okay, tutup layers there, and then you will have just the development. Tutup the development layers, then you will have just the topography punya map. Okay. Alright. And pastikan when you the drawings, please note the scale. I'm not sure about the scale. It should be 1:1. All AutoCAD drawings should be in a 1:1 scale. Cuma when we are printing, we might print 1:100, 1:200, and so on. Yeah? So please check on the scale. Okay?
Doctor,
Yes.
as you mentioned just now, ITP2 is a continuous cost of ITP1.
Right? Correct?
So it does it must taken continuously? I mean, like this sem we already take ITP1.
Yeah.
So the next sem we should take the ITP2, or we can skip one sem and then take.
Yes. You can continue directly, or you can take a rest and continue IDP2 in semester 2. Okay?
I see. Means the group is not remaining sem lah.
Yes, yes.
And the
I
section.
think the academic office they always divide into two. We have 7 groups. Maybe 4 groups will be doing immediately semester 1. The 3 groups will be doing semester 2, or maybe the other way around. I'm not sure. But usually the academic they handle all these things. I leave it to them to to do
Yeah, I see.
this
I
stuff.
concern it too.
Okay, all right.
So our group member will be different now. So that doesn't matter, right?
Yeah. I will release the grouping list by inshallah by end of this week. and get to know your group members. Okay, you will be maintaining your group members in IDP 1 dan juga IDP 2. So it will be the same group members. Okay, so it will be a good start to get to know each other. Okay, even though online pun tak apalah. The best is by physical kan, kita dapat jumpa. Okay, but we are quite restricted at this moment in our physical face to face, so we have to depend a lot on our online punya discussion lah. Even grouping, you can have your online discussion. Yeah.
Doctor, do you mean our section will remain same even though we skip one sem?
Yes.
Oh, it's all depend on school academy.
Yes, it will depend on the academic office. Usually, if let's say this is K1 S1, so K1 S1 will be maintained either in semester 1 ataupun semester 2 next session. The group members, I mean, the students for the
The
grouping
whole section like
or the
like
whole
our
section.
section 4, then we will all whole section transfer. All whole section will
Yes, you will
visit
maintain the same
time.
section. Yes.
All right, I see.
Okay. Okay, Kelvin. Anyone else? Ada apa-apa soalan?
Doktor, ada attendance ke?
Attendance tak ada. Saya memang tak ambil attendance. Siapa namanya ada sini, consider attendance lah sebab ni semua recorded.
Alright, thank you, Doktor.
Okay. Anyone else? Tak ada?
Doktor.
Yes, okay. Faiz. Faizal Tahir ke Faiz Tahir?
Faiz je, Doktor.
Okay. Okay.
Doktor, you say that kita perlu follow proposed road, right? If we do.
Okay. Bukan follow. It is a guide lah.
It's a
sebagai
guide.
panduan. Naturally kita akan follow yang mana yang possible. Contoh, jalan baru bertemu jalan sedia ada. Of course, kita nak level yang sama lah. Okay.
Okay, kalau kita nak propose tu higher or lower, kita ada limit tak untuk
Limitation higher, biasanya kalau higher is okay. Tapi lower problem dia macam contoh peparitan, drainage. If you are lower than existing drain di luar sini tinggi dia, kita punya drain lower, then we cannot discharge kepada drain yang tinggi. Okay. So itu kita punya limitation. It can be sama ataupun higher. Kalau higher lagi bagus. Then we can discharge kepada drain. Kita tak nak lah. We would try not to use pumping because pumping is very expensive. Boleh. From lower level, we can pump the water up kepada higher level. Tapi there will be a waste of resources because it will be very expensive. We can solve it by having a higher drain compared to the existing drain di luar. Then we can discharge water from our side kepada existing drain. There will be a better solution lah. Yeah.
Sebab kita masih bergantung harap pada longkang yang existing kan, Doktor?
Yes. Gravity flow. We always depend pada gravity flow. We know there is existing drainage di luar, certain level. Naturally, to make use of gravity, which is free, then kita raise up sikit lah so that we can ensure that there is flow from a high level kepada lower level. Okay, Faiz.
Kalau ada macam situasi yang perlu design lower than existing, memang kena pakai pump lah, Doktor.
Yes. Terpaksa lah pakai pump. Because the existing drain is higher than our proposed drain. Jadi tak boleh nak discharge. Yeah.
Okay, alright, Doktor.
Okay, alright. Anyone else?
Doctor,
Yes, Leong. Oh, sorry. Kelvin lagi. Okay, Kelvin, apa dia?
do we have sample of site inventory proposal to refer? I mean the format the
Because
content,
usually the
or
site
it just a
inventory,
draft.
the site inventory and site analysis is actually part of your poster. Because in your poster, you need to highlight yang dua ni, inventory and juga analysis. So in the report, you don't need to highlight the inventory, the analysis. But in your poster later on, which is on the 12th of May kan? Somewhere around there kan, 12 May. So in your poster, you need to highlight the site inventory dan juga site analysis. Okay. Cuma now, I'm trying to explain how to conduct ataupun how to do the site inventory dengan site analysis. I can share some posters, some previous posters from your seniors. Dalam group, I will share the posters for you as a guide. How they transform their inventory and analysis, site inventory dan juga site analysis into a poster. Okay. And from there, they propose the levels. From site inventory, move on kepada site analysis, and from site analysis, finally it will come up with a proposed level. That is the flow of the the process that we are trying to capture at this early stage is to do our inventory dan juga analysis, and from these two processes, finally we can come up with some reasonable proposed level, okay, for the whole site, and that will form kita punya percubaan pertama, the first trial. Okay? And from there kita buat evaluation on costing, and the second trial will then try to modify certain levels so that you can bring down the cost, maybe by 10%, maybe by 15%, or even maybe by 5% pun tak apa, as long there is a reduction in cost. Okay, and to achieve that reduction in cost is by modifying certain levels. Mungkin dulu your cutting is too much. To reduce cutting, then you need to raise the level so that you reduce the cutting. If previously there was so much filling, then too much filling, jadi nak buat macam ni. Kalau cutting, nak reduce cutting, increase the level. Nak reduce filling, reduce the level. Okay, reduce the level, then reduce the filling exercise. Increase the level, we reduce the cutting. So these are the two measures that you can modify. Not on the whole, tak payahlah whole site. Just pick up certain areas yang critical, and from there you work out certain modifications to naturally to bring down the volume of cut and fill. And when you bring down the volume of cut and fill, this would be translated sebagai a reduction in cost. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else?
Alright, noted.
Okay. Okay. We have international students kan sini? Okay, we are now beyond 10:15, almost 10:15. For those yang having classes at 10 o'clock, you are allowed to you are excused, okay? You can attend your classes. Cuma for those yang without any classes at 10 o'clock, if you have any questions, I'll be very willing to try to answer any of your questions. Tak ada? Okay, if there are no more questions, then can I stop here for today? And maybe we meet in maybe 2 or 3 or 4 weeks time, yeah, for the second part of the lecture, where now we go into a more detailed punya study in evaluating the cut and fill, looking at the cross-section drawings, plan views, cross-section views, looking at slope stabilities dan sebagainya. As what is denoted ataupun as what you can find in the notes that I have shared dalam e-learning, right? So if that is the case, then to end the session, have a good weekend coming tomorrow, yeah? Dan stay safe, stay negative, okay? Dan wish you a good day. Good day for everyone. Assalamualaikum and have a good day.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Doctor.
The recording going to be paused at e-learning.
Okay.
Hello?
Thank you, Doctor. Okay.
Hello, doctor?
Okay.
I'd like to ask, is the recording going to be posted at e-learning?
The recording will be posted in e-learning. Section 1, 4, 7, and SKAB section 1.
All right. Noted. Thank you, doctor.
Okay.